Fantasy Football, the 10 most significant headlines from NFL Preseason Week 2. Let's face it, fantasy football players live and breathe every NFL preseason snap to decode what their star athletes might look like for the season ahead. But here's where it gets controversial. Preseason rotations often mislead, and coaches sometimes mask real intentions. And this is the part most people miss. Early usage patterns can dramatically shift, altering fantasy values in ways you don't expect. So buckle up as we explore the 10 biggest reactions from Week 2 of the NFL preseason, breaking down who's heating up, cooling off, and why these details matter so much to your 2025 fantasy season. 1. Brock Bowers' role shrinks amid tight end rotation with Las Vegas Raiders. Las Vegas Raiders offensive coordinator Chip Kelly has adopted a familiar strategy, cycling through tight ends in the preseason. Brock Bowers, despite his elite talent, is seeing fewer routes, signaling a potentially reduced role when the regular season begins. While Bowers caught a big 28-yard pass early, it appears Michael Mayer is favored on early downs, while Bowers surfaces primarily on third downs. This split snap scenario could hinder Bowers' fantasy ceiling, especially given the Raiders have yet to use 12 personnel with starters, which may limit his involvement. Historical comparisons to other similarly sized tight ends like Juwan Johnson and Dalton Kincaid show many such players become frustratingly rotational near the fantasy draft tables. The key question facing managers: can Bowers' talent overcome limited snaps to justify his current mid-second round average draft position? 2. Houston Texans continue to favor veterans over rookie wideouts in starting sets. The Texans stayed loyal to experience, with rookies like Hayden Higgins and Jalen Noel hardly seeing the field alongside starters. Instead, veterans such as Nico Collins, Christian Kirk, and Xavier Hutchinson dominated 11 personnel snaps, occupying the core receiver roles. Roxy, being a rookie, facing an uphill battle tomorrow. Even with some preseason opportunities, Noel and Higgins were mostly restricted to backup roles within 21 personnel packages, limiting their potential to showcase fantasy worthiness early on. This veteran-first approach might cause some to question if Houston's young receivers will ever break through this year, especially when rookies often get misrepresented on depth charts compared to their real playing time. 3. New York Jets maintain a complex three-back rotation, keeping fantasy owners guessing. The Jets' backfield is a prime example of why preseason snaps don't always equal definitive fantasy roles. Breece Hall played around 61% of offensive snaps with starters, down from his past standard of around 69%, even while missing Isaiah Davis, who handles crucial third-down duties. Braylon Allen's effectiveness, especially on third downs, is notable, often playing every such snap. Once Davis returns from injury, Hall's playing time will likely dip further, perhaps pushing him into one of the more frustrating three-man backfield rotations in the league. Fantasy managers should exercise caution before drafting Hall at his RB14 average draft position, especially when a two-back commit is often safer for consistent production. 4. Tank Bigsby emerges as a startable running back in Jaguars' backfield. Unlike last week's more experimental rotation, this game presented a clearer look at Jacksonville's backfield. Bigsby handled most early downs during the opening drive, with Travis Etienne Jr. featuring on third downs, mirroring their skill sets, Bigsby's power running and Etienne's pass-catching ability. Both backs shared the workload almost evenly, including snaps, targets, and carries. Given this, it might surprise some that current projections place Etienne 2 rounds ahead of Bigsby, a gap that perhaps should close or even flip based on usage trends. Bashal Tutin, still immature in season readiness after camp injuries, hasn't factored into starter snaps, adding uncertainty to the depth chart. If one back separates from this trio, he'll become a fantasy starter. But until then, volume and roles remain unpredictable. 5. Nick Chubb set to lead Houston Texans' backfield, with Joe Mixon's status in question. Chubb's heavy snap usage with the first string signals he could be Houston's starter when Week 1 arrives. Mixon is currently sidled on the non-football injury list with foot and ankle issues, with reports uncertain on his readiness, causing many fantasy analysts to rethink his value entirely. Dameon Pierce and Chubb have split practice reps, but Chubb's recent health and pedigree give him the nod. Dare Ogunbowale also features in passing situations, hinting at a traditional early down versus third down back split. Rookie Woody Marks sits deep on the depth chart, indicating low short-term fantasy impact despite his longer-term upside. Fantasy managers eyeing Texans backs should prioritize Chubb but watch Mixon's injury news closely. 6. Antonio Gibson steps up for New England Patriots. Challenging Tre'Veyon Henderson's role. A surprising development unfolded in the Patriots' backfield this week, with Antonio Gibson starting ahead of Tre'Veyon Henderson, who continues to have a situational role that puzzles many. Henderson has shown undeniable talent, often earning third down snaps and making explosive plays. But the Patriots persist with a rotation-based approach rather than an every-down role, even with Ramondre Stevenson absent. This split could cause volatile fantasy performances for Henderson, swinging between big play upside and frustratingly low target games. The unpredictability of his role raises questions about his reliability in redraft leagues, and whether Gibson's increased involvement might signal a shift in New England's backfield priorities. 7. New Orleans Saints Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed return healthy and ready. It's refreshing and reassuring to see Olave and Shaheed back at full strength after missing the latter half of 2024. Both played every snap with starters, signaling their importance to the Saints' offense. However, Brandon Cook's absence from recent games clouds the picture of how the Saints will balance their wide receiver roles. Cedric Wilson Jr. has played more in the slot and might secure a bigger role than some expect, challenging conventional wisdom. Interestingly, offensive coordinator Kellen Moore's history shows his slot receivers have produced significant fantasy points, while outside receivers often struggle. Could Wilson's slot usage offer him sneaky late-round value? The mix of Olave, Shaheed, and Cooks in three-wide sets remains an open question, underscoring the uncertainty in New Orleans' receiving hierarchy. 8. Alec Ayamenor's motion usage shines a light on Tennessee Titans' wide receiver strategy. The Titans have extensively revamped their wide receiver core, and Alec Ayamenor's high rate of motion pre-snap stands out. Motion can hint at how a player fits into offensive schemes, often helping receivers find open space or create mismatches. Ayamenor's repeated use in motion suggests the coaching staff trusts his versatility and could mean he carves out a regular season role, especially with top veterans sitting out. His role might feature specialized packages where motion is crucial, potentially boosting his fantasy relevance. Meanwhile, Tyler Lockett and Calvin Ridley,